You're listening to the Rebel Rebel podcast with Rory Carson. Tasha Vigeshtak, leis an fod cruelly Rebel Rebel, le Rory McCarson.
Away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me, you can't decide to turn your face away, no matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. 'Cause you're doing me wrong, so wrong. Thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh no. Something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You hide behind your walls of Jericho, your lies will come tumbling. Then I'm a blessing time, you squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly it will blind you. 'Cause there's something inside so strong, I know that I can't make it. You're doing me wrong, so wrong. I thought that my pride was gone. No, no. Something inside so strong. Something inside so strong. Oh, no, no, no. Something inside so strong. Brothers and sisters, when they insist we're just not good enough, but we know better, we'll just look him in the eyes and say, we're gonna do it anyway, we're gonna do it anyway, we're gonna do it anyway, 'cause there's something inside so strong, I know that I can't make it. You're doing me wrong, so wrong. Thought that my pride was gone. No, no. Something inside so strong. Our day is coming. Something inside so strong. Our day is coming. Something inside so strong.
We, the Ballymurphy families, welcome the coroners. Justice Keegan declared all unjustified force was used in the killing of our loved ones and entirely innocent. After 50 years, they have finally had their names cleared and their innocence put beyond doubt. I want to take a moment to remember them and remind us of what today's verdict means. Joan Callany, innocent. Joseph Carr, innocent. Eddie Doherty, innocent. John Lavery, innocent. John McCurr, innocent. Father Hugh Mullen, innocent. Joseph Murphy, innocent. Roel Phillips, innocent. Frank Quinn, innocent. My father, Donny Taggart, innocent.
So folks, welcome along to episode 4 of my Tuesday night show, Row in Conversation With. So we're joined by two family members of the victims of the Ballymurphy massacre. So we are joined this evening by Irene Lackey, the daughter of Joan Connolly, and Eileen McCune, the daughter of Joseph Core. So Irene, Eileen, welcome along to the show, and thank you for taking the time to come up this evening to share your stories. I know this is a hard thing to talk about and discuss, so thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
So first things first, let's sort of get some background on what happened in Ballymurphy between the 9th and the 11th of August 1971. So internment was recently introduced, and the notorious parachute regiment of the British Army were responsible for the unjustified killings of 10 innocent victims, and 11th victim, John McCurr. The results were inconclusive as to who actually shot him. So in May this year, coroner Miss Justice Keegan released the results of her inquiry, and unsurprisingly, all 11 victims were deemed to be totally innocent. They were not petrol bombers, gunmen or women. So Irene, we'll go to yourself first, okay?
Yep.
So, before we sort of get into how your mummy Joan Connolly actually came to your death, let's first talk about your family. So, where did you actually grow up, and like how many siblings did you have? And just tell us a wee bit about your parents.
My mummy was born and reared in Collingwood Street, and my daddy was from Monaghan. They met at a dance, and they married in 1946. They went on to have 8 children. I'm the youngest of the 8. They had 2 sons and 6 daughters. Mummy worked in one of the mills. Well, I think she worked in a few of the mills on the road, but gave it up when she started having her family. They lived in the prefab bungalows on the Shore Road. I think that's where a few of them were born. I was actually born in Ballymurphy. They moved into Ballymurphy. I think it was 1964 or 65. I'm not 100% sure. I think, I was the only one that was born in Ballymurphy. The rest of them were all born either the markets or the Shore Road.
Right, okay. So, same to yourself then, Eileen. So, obviously, I'm good friends with you. Your nephews, Neil, Mickey, and Colin. Obviously, calling them cheesy, even nobody calls them Colin. So, obviously, over the years, I would sort of have a brief sort of introduction. Obviously, talking to them about your father's death and stuff in the case. So, obviously, how old were you? Obviously. So I'll speak to you first. Obviously, can you? That was the second question there. So can you, same as Irene there, just explain a bit about obviously where you grew up, and just a bit about obviously your siblings and your mother and father as well.
Well, I'm one of 7. My mummy and daddy was both from down around the Loney. The only house I know was Divismore Crescent, and as far as I know, I was born there. Like Irene, I'm not sure any of the older ones were born there. My mummy as well worked in the mill, but then later got a job in the Royal Victoria Hospital in the maternity. My daddy worked in Short's aircraft factory. The oldest was Neil's daddy. He was 21. The youngest was 4 months old.
Right, okay.
We had a good life. I mean, up until we were actually going to Australia. My daddy's brother lived in Australia, and he.
So you remember getting your
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The plans was all already put in motion, and my daddy had a trade. So.
Was that just because of the troubles, and you wanted to get you away, or like?
No, I think Mum and Daddy wanted to go to be with a different
family?
life,
Right, okay,
his family over there.
Yeah.
But just because she didn't have all the paperwork and all that you do now, he was just claiming him.
Right, okay.
And because he had a trade, it made it easier.
Right.
So they actually, then my mummy I think was a wee bit annoyed that it didn't go sooner. But sure, you don't know these things.
Yeah. Right. So back to Irene. Okay. So what age were you when your mummy was murdered? And then obviously, can you sort of set out what you know of the circumstances of how your mummy came to your death?
I was 3.
3. Okay.
I turned 3 in the February. And my mummy was murdered on the 9th of August. From what I know, interment had broke in the early hours of the morning, and throughout the day there has been sporadic rioting, kids throwing stones. The Protestants from Spring Martin had tried to burn the ones in Springfield Park out.
Right.
So because of that happening, my mummy went looking for my two sisters, Breach, who was 14, and Joan, who was 12. She found Breach and had asked a neighbour to bring Breach home while she went looking for Joan. But the army had opened up with tear gas and she had lost Breach again. I'm not sure where the shooting had started first, but I know it started in Springfield Park because Frank Quinn and Father Mullen were shot.
Right.
But the Henry Tigard, the front of the Henry Tigard, the soldiers there started opening fire, and my mummy, along with a few others, had run into what is known as the manse.
The manse, right, okay.
Yeah, it used to be an old priest's house, I think.
Right.
There was nothing there, only the pillars.
Just a run for cover in it because
And
the
it
shooting was going, right,
yeah,
okay.
and there was a few fallen trees, and sort of like hedges going along. So they had run in there for cover. My mummy, Mr. Tigard, Mr. Murphy, Noel Phillips, I think about 5 or 6 other people. Noel Phillips was cutting across the field in the manse and had been shot on the backside. He fell shouting that he was shot, and the witnesses that were in the field says that my mummy very calmly left her place of safety because she thought that the soldiers wouldn't shoot her. She was convinced that the Protestants would shoot her, but the army wouldn't shoot her. So she very calmly walked over to Noel, saying to Noel, "It's okay, son, I'll help you. I'm coming to help you, you're okay." And she got shot in the face. She fell to her knees and she was heard to scream that she was blind, she couldn't see. People in the field were trying to tell her to stay down in case she was shot again, which she was a further 4 times. The army then came out, I'm not sure, half an hour later, they came out with a loudhailer and said to get their injured out of the field. So anybody that was able to leave the field was to get out.
Right.
But the army came out of the barracks and went into the manse. Noel Phillips, again, who was only shot in the backside, he was shot once behind each of his ears by an officer.
Just at point blank?
Yeah, he stood over him and told him, "F up, you see," and shot him the back of each ear. Mr. Tigard, Noel Phillips, Mr. Tigard and Mr. Murphy, along with some of the others who were injured, were lifted and taken into the Henry Tigard. The soldiers said that they knew my mummy was dead, so they left her, but that nobody had said that they had checked her. We later found out that my mummy bled to death from her wounds.
To the face then?
Yeah,
So-
she was shot in the face. They took the left side of her face off. She was shot in the shoulder and the thigh. The one in the thigh had ripped through the back of her thigh, and her
Did
sort
it
of
come
thigh-
out of actually what she was shot with? I mean, what kind of, like, was it a machine gun? Or I mean, what was it? What the?
No, it was an
High
high velocity bullets. I think it was an SLR.
SLR, okay,
Yeah.
right.
The one in the back of the leg ripped her leg open so that the top of her thigh fell to the back of her knee.
Jesus.
The pathologist that we got to do an independent report said that had mummy received medical aid at the time, she may have survived the damage that was done to her, but they left her in the field till the early hours of the morning and then decided that they were going to play with her. Put her on one of the soldiers put her on his back and held her arms around his neck and paraded her around the barracks like a trophy.
Jesus. That's just heartbreaking. Like. Yes.
That all happened on the Monday evening. My daddy had been sort of, him and my older sister and my older brother had been out looking for her and they couldn't find her, so my brother said to my sister, go across the street and ask a neighbour, can you ring the Royal? And she rang to see if any woman with red hair had been brought into the hospital, and says that there was only one woman with red hair and she was in the morgue. So the neighbour he had a car, so he took my daddy down to the hospital. She was in that bad of a state. They had to took my daddy 3 attempts to identify her. When he was brought home, he was literally carried in by 2 of the neighbours. And we were then shuffled out of the house and into cars and sent to refugee camps along the border.
Do you
in Cork
remember any of this? Like,
no,
just still only 3.
I have no memory of any of it happening, and I have no memory of my mummy at all.
But the majority of the horrific stuff that Erin has just said about what they did with their mummy and the way that they paraded her, you should learn most of that through the inquest. I mean, that's what we as families had to listen to.
And did they? So was the Brits openly admitted doing this here?
Yeah.
I mean, see when they actually went down to the morgue in the hospital, did they say who brought her in, or what does the army dump her here? Or how did you just find out she got there, or?
I honestly don't know. Other than the sister rang the hospital and they said that the only admittance that they had of a woman with red hair was brought into the morgue in the early hours of the morning.
Heartbreaking, Erin. Right, so we'll come back. So now, seeing yourself, Erin. So what age were you when your father was murdered, and then can you tell me the sort of circumstances around that you're aware of, that how he came to his death? Then
I was 9 when my daddy was murdered. I don't even remember much about troubles or anything beforehand.
Yeah.
You knew that the soldiers was there. I mean, my daddy would have made them tea. You know, most of the people like then really did. My sister was going to be a soldier. But what I know is that my mummy and daddy was actually at a wedding that day. But somebody, one of the neighbours in the street. So when they come home from the wedding, mummy went up to her friend's house and my daddy was in the house. And then, you know, all the trouble started, the bin lids, and my daddy and Joe left the house and went up to see. We thought the Protestants we were told, well, they were told, I wasn't obviously told, but they were told that the Protestants was coming over the mountain and they were coming down into the estates to attack the homes and attack the families. So my daddy and Joe left the house to go up. They were basically only up top of our street. And there was crowds over at the barricade. And they walked over with everybody else. And they seen the ones coming down, you know, coming down the Loney. But they didn't know it was the soldiers until they started firing. And the only way they knew it was live fire was because the sparks was hitting off the railings. Everybody just scattered. Joe and my daddy got separated. Joe actually helped somebody that night. I think it was shot in the arm. Mm-hmm. But had stepped over someone in the road. And we found out through our own investigation and through doing, you know, looking into all the statements and everything else, that was actually my daddy that our Joe stepped over.
Seriously?
And he didn't know that. No.
He had no idea.
No idea. He just sort of always had a wee inkling, but finding that out was devastating. Well, it was bad enough that he actually lived with survivor's guilt because he'd left them. They'd got separated. Joe come home expecting my daddy to be in the house, and then my daddy was missing for 3 days before any of us or any of my mummy knew where he was. She checked all the hospitals, but he was found in Military Wing, Musgrave Park Hospital, which was a good bit away from us, considering that the Royal was only 5 minutes down the road. But they took, we don't know the reason why they took my daddy and John Lavery to Musgrave. But my daddy had his address on him.
Right.
So they knew.
They could have went to your house. Or,
the police could have came to my mummy's door and told my mummy, and nobody ever came near our door to tell my mummy that my daddy had been shot or anything.
So, was there any witness to say how your daddy was shot? I mean,
no.
Right.
No. Yes, well, there was witnesses, but not too, like, close up, because my daddy, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. We actually ended up, I was always worried about my daddy's case because of lack of witnesses.
Yeah, yeah.
But what witnesses we had, you know, were they told the absolute truth.
So there were strong
You know,
witnesses, in the
actually
case.
didn't
right?
come. One of them didn't actually come on board till a while later on, till he because nobody questioned anybody then. You know, the police didn't go door to door, or the soldiers didn't
Yep.
go door to door. They asked anybody, did they see anything? So when we'd started doing this all them years ago, and we put out to see had anybody witnessed anything, or you know, did it have? We got brilliant witnesses from
Yeah.
that.
But even there, just through the inquest, just before the inquest, our solicitor, Paddy Murray, had put out asking for people to come in to give witness statements. And the one who actually seen Eileen's daddy, it was the first time he had actually spoke about it.
Yeah.
And he was a kid
When
it
happened.
happened. And he was a grown man, and he just couldn't believe that nobody had ever asked what had happened, what he had seen.
He was one of the Doyle brothers, of two wee brothers that was taken out of their house that night and badly beaten. Like, they were only kids, it was 16, 14,
Yeah.
and they were badly beaten by the paratroopers.
So, see, on the days of when this all happened, was there a gun battle going on between the public? So obviously it came out that there was loyalists who said, "Oh, it was us who shot them," and all this.
Yeah, that was all a
so-
ploy to try and take the
There
thing
were
off the
soldiers
inquest.
in the Henry Taggart, there were soldiers from Fear Foster, and there were soldiers on the flats in Spring Martin. It was like a three-way gun battle. There was no IRA, there was no
No.
gunmen on the ground. There was one man who lived in Springfield Park who had a rifle, but he had a licence for it.
Right.
He was,
And that was the only, he was pulled with it, and he provided the licence and whatever, and they said it hadn't been fired.
Yeah.
So there was nothing.
I mean, growing up, you know, my mummy protected us as kids, so we didn't really, I've learned everything through our Joe and through, you know, other family members, but doing this ourselves, I found out more. And I was always told that my daddy was killed in crossfire. And like most people, I always thought it was crossfire between the IRA and the soldiers. Till we actually got it was a pathologist up the top of the right track. And when we were telling him where the soldiers were and what way they were coming, he says, quite possibly your daddy was shot in crossfire, but it was crossfire between the two soldiers. You know, once was coming down one street, once was coming down one, and once was coming from Turf Lodge. So they were actually shooting at one another.
Like, and why do you think? Obviously we know what happened on Bloody Sunday. That's the powers as well. Was the reason for this?
That was the Demetrius, was it?
We believe that at the time, the government that was in place at the time wanted to take control of Catholic areas.
Right.
And I think the method in their madness was that if they take control of these areas, they will get control of the IRA.
Well, it was because it was the start of internment too. They were just getting in with
that
force.
was the reason that they called in Operation Demetrius, to take in all the young men, old men, any fella, jail them without trial or anything else. But I think it was also to get into our areas and shock and stun.
Yeah. Okay.
Bring us under control, and then we'll comply with whatever they want. They just didn't expect retaliation, especially from the women of the area who went up and battered on the Henry Taggart doors looking for their husbands and their sons and their brothers. They weren't expecting that. So I think it was just a case of we were moving targets, and get in, get rid of the targets, and everything will...
Myself and I went to Blackpool a lot of years ago, and there was an ex-soldier, and it was a union thing, and he actually stood up and apologised, but says just he was here but wasn't in.
Yeah.
You know, so me and Aaron just looked at one another, same old story. But he stood up and says that from whatever regiment he was from, he says they didn't even like the Paris. He says they were told
Just like a law
that
themselves, like
yeah,
holding
and
everything,
They were
yeah.
the scum.
they were told that we were nothing, only dirt,
Yeah.
not even worth wiping off their shoes. Now this was a soldier actually telling us this, and he says they were told the Catholics was just
And
useless.
anything that moved was a target.
Right. Folks, just before we go on, there's a couple people saying here their screen is freezing, so you know we're on YouTube as well. So I know what the odd time on a Sunday, the Facebook feed does get cut off for some reason, by Facebook, but we're on YouTube as well at the same time. So if the screen does freeze on you, just jump all across to the YouTube, or if you want to go on the YouTube now and watch it, it'll be guaranteed to be on there for the whole show. So listen, very moving stories there from both of you. Thanks very much for sharing them. So see, when this all originally happened, obviously in 1971, was there an initial inquest, and if there was, like, from the army or anybody, and if there was, what was the findings of it then?
There was an inquest in 1972.
Right.
And there was 16 statements handed over with my mummy's case. All the soldiers all stated that my mummy was a gunwoman. Everybody thinks their mummy's invincible.
Yep.
According to these soldiers, my mummy was better than invincible. My mummy stood in the field with a gun that was bigger than her and opened fire on the army. They shot her. She crawled like a
Sniper,
action man
I think. Right.
under hedges, got a rifle, climbed up onto the roof of a garage that wasn't there,
Right.
put it on a tripod and machine gunned over. They shot her and she fell off and fell behind hedges and was seen crawling again.
So where's this supposed machine gun that she was meant to have had? Like, I mean, it was like,
During the inquest, General Howlett, who was head of the army at the time, stated that there was no guns, there was no gun battle. He believed that our loved ones were innocent, but they were guilty by association. And the judge asked him what he meant by that, and he said, well, they didn't have any guns on them, they weren't shooting. But to be out at that time, they were supporting the IRA, so...
He actually said that about Father Mullen as well, because he went to help.
A wounded man.
that's shocking.
I mean, where my daddy was shot, when John Lavery, I mean, they said that they were shooting at 2 IRA gunmen. And when they came down the mountain only to where my daddy and John was, they just looked at them, stepped over them, and carried on down the White Rock Road. So, I mean, you're not going to step over a gunman.
Yeah.
You're not going to turn your back on a gunman. But
And
yet,
also, during the inquest, the soldiers stated that when they went into the field, into the man's field, that they walked in behind the Saracen. So that in itself proved that there was no threat to their lives, that there was no gun battle that they said that was going on. Because if there was a gun battle, they're not going to come out.
Yeah, I'm just not
walking.
gone through it. Yeah.
And because our barrister, Fiona Docherty, had asked, had we any question? I says, yeah, I want to know what he was wearing when he walked out of the barracks. She says, what do you mean? I says, well, he was saying about just being in a jumper and a shirt. If he's walking out from the barracks to the man's field, he would have had some sort of protection. So they asked, and he says, no, we just walked behind the Saracen and I had a jumper and a shirt on.
So basically, they just, like, the government just accepted in the findings of that their initial and thought, well, that's it, waste now. That's what happened, and we'll just.
there was no guns found anywhere near any of the victims. None whatsoever.
And all paramilitary groups at the time stated that none of them
Were
were
in it,
affiliated.
Yeah.
The coroner
And
actually
no family
checked.
members were affiliated. There was no military or no
Trappings.
paramilitary trappings on any of their coffins. As a matter of fact, my mummy was actually buried from St John's because it was deemed that a commoner couldn't be buried from the same chapel as a priest. Father Mullen was interred in Corpus Christi.
Right.
So my mummy had to go to St John's.
It's obviously 50 years. It's a very long time sort of fighting for trying to get truth and justice, to clear your names, your loved ones. Did you ever think that this sort of judgment would never come? Eventually come, like?
Yeah, we never thought I never thought it would come.
Even now, I mean, it's 2 weeks later.
And still
You're still in
sinking
shock?
And it's still surreal. It still feels like we've been watching somebody else achieve that
Yeah.
moment rather than us, because at the beginning with the inquest, every time we went to court we were always given put back because
yep.
there wasn't, the army weren't putting in the information that was requested of them, and it just seemed to go on for so long. So when we actually got into court, the first day of court, I was actually waiting on the judge saying, no, sorry, but we have to put it back. So it was a kind of a shock to the families that, yeah, we're progressing with this. And then do you have this at the end? I mean, it's... All we got told last week was it's going to take a few weeks to settle in.
The sink, isn't it? Aye. So obviously, I watched recently an interview that your solicitor, Ballymurphy, did with Joe Austin. Obviously, it was a couple of days obviously after the initial inquest. And it's sort of clear this inquest has been embedded in his life, probably from the day one when he took over it. So tell me a wee bit about Paddy and sort of what him and his firm have done for your family's case.
Where do you start?
They have just been brilliant. I mean, every one of them. I mean, as Paddy's right, but he says we just walk in and make him a cup of tea.
Yeah, he said it was like more like a drop-in centre than a solicitor's office.
At one stage it was just a drop-in centre.
And I mean, his mummy would have made us apple cakes.
Yeah. Paddy I think what helped us with Paddy was that Paddy's mummy came from Ballymurphy. Paddy's mummy lived round the corner from us, Ballymurphy Road. So I think that in itself, being a Murph man, well, I don't know where Paddy was born or reared, but he's a Murph man.
Yes.
That in itself, Paddy knowing the history of Ballymurphy helped him understand. So when he got on board with us, I mean, I don't think...
He helped us immensely. Like,
there's
really,
no words
really
to describe
Yep.
what Paddy did for the families. And I don't mean just... He wasn't just a solicitor.
He's a friend.
Yeah,
and
He's like a brother.
He's part of it.
And he
yeah.
explain things to you in layman's terms. You know, when they read all that legal jargon out, Paddy put it to us.
What it actually meant and what it fusions.
What way we could understand it. He was just...
I mean, there was nothing Paddy wouldn't have done with the families. He explained everything, every step. He had us in meetings, he had us in his groups, he had us in his families. Tell me what you want and I will help you all the way. Or what about you? Do you want this done or do you want that done? And
and that's the way he was all along. It wasn't... he let us know on a constant basis that he worked for us. You know, and it's if you don't like it this way, then it doesn't happen that way. You know, whatever you want.
It's on your terms, not theirs, yes. Right.
And he always, no matter who he met with, he always said that the families lead the campaign. Nobody else leads the campaign. It's the families. And the families will meet with who they want to meet with. And they will speak to people the way that they want to speak with.
I'm sure for him as well, like, he's probably say he's still sort of pretty young. As a solicitor, I mean, so a case sort of this magnitude for him, still massive through. Like, I mean, actually, I spoke to him when listening in his interview with Joe, and as if like sometimes like he was sort of treated like you're just some wee kid. Like, I mean, you aren't like do you know what you're dealing with here, kind of thing. I mean, you're coming in and like you're going to get brushed aside, so you are, you know.
Well, if anybody thought that of Paddy, they got it very much mistaken, didn't it? Because he had the best legal team on our case.
Well, we're going to speak about there. So obviously he was able to recruit top barrister Michael Mansfield to represent the family. So tell us a wee bit about the first time you met Michael and when was this, and also from a sort of a family perspective, how much of a lift was it to have somebody of his sort of stature representing you?
We actually met Michael Mansfield in Paddy's office. And Paddy's mummy did a beautiful spread of food. We met with Michael and his wife, Paddy called us in as a group and explained to us that he had got Michael Mansfield to come on board. At that time, we weren't sure who he was representing. He was just brought in as a member of the legal team. And he said that Michael was coming over the following week and wanted to meet with the families. So Paddy set it up in his office, and when you see Michael Mansfield on TV and you see him with the Hillsborough ones, he's a big man, big stature, and he commands a presence. When we met him, he was so down to earth. He was the complete opposite to what you see on TV. He's, again, with Paddy, we are here to do what you want us to do. You guide us, we'll follow. And
did he explain why he wanted to get involved in it? I mean, for him?
I think it was, he's seen a lot of injustice.
He is like a...
The same with the Hillsborough ones. So, because of the similarities, and then he spoke to Paddy, and Paddy explained to him about the entire case, and stuff was sent over to him to read over. He never sort of explained as to why he wanted to be part of it, other than he wanted to see that the families got justice that they deserve.
So how often would you have sort of met him? I mean, was he over here a lot? I mean, was he? I mean,
the first
during the
initial inquest,
the initial inquest, he was there all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously
he even invited us to his wedding.
Yeah.
Seriously, when I was listening to Paddy's interview, he was sort of explaining about how much sort of work was involved in this here. So I think of a case of this magnitude, financially, it would have been massive. I mean, so who sort of financed this here? I mean, was it just basically Michael and Paddy said that we're going to? I mean, and then we'll sort of. I mean, it's. I mean, also because they're sort of going against sort of like probably top lawyers and stuff from the English government. You know what I mean? Whatever, and. I think it was hard for me to watch when he was explaining, saying like that he went without a lot of times, like as long as his staff was paid, because he was taking this case on more or less like his main thing, and there was actually weeks he was getting like next to nothing coming in, and like,
believe me, there was weeks Paddy was getting nothing. There was so much that Paddy did for us, that he wouldn't be paid for. And there was also a lot of stuff that he couldn't be paid for because what he did, there's no amount of money would have paid him. I'm not 100% sure. I think some of the money may have come from legal aid. I know we, the Conleys, we got legal aid.
Right.
Well, I think the majority.
Yeah.
So take about was like, then was it 11 individual cases then?
There's actually only 10 inquests.
Oh, 10.
But Pat McCarthy is innocent as well as our 10. But because Pat McCarthy didn't die from gunshot wounds, but he died from a heart attack directly because of the British Army.
Yeah.
But because that circumstances,
a mock execution on him.
we couldn't get an inquest for him. But he's still part of the 11, and he's because ours was all innocent. Proves Paddy McCarthy innocent as well, and proves what his family were saying too, that he died through.
I mean, so explain a little bit about there. So did say her they put an empty gun in his mouth or something? Did they?
They put a rifle in his mouth and pulled the trigger, but there was no bullets in it. And Paddy obviously.
And he was an Englishman,
right?
He thought he was going to die, so. When they put that into the gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger, he took a massive heart attack and died.
At that stage, so he died at the scene then? That happened as well.
Yeah, he was actually an Englishman over from he lived in
Quaker.
Ballymurphy, but he was a youth worker.
Right. Okay.
He was based in White Rock Community Centre, and he was actually shot at by the army. He had made a wee truck up.
Milk.
To bring milk and bread and butter and stuff into Ballymurphy because the army wouldn't let any deliveries in.
Right, okay.
So people were going to loss, babies weren't getting milk and that. So he made this wee cart up, and he filled it with bread and milk, and he stuck a flag out the door of the community centre with a white
flag.
Oh, to say he was going
Yeah.
okay.
And they shot at the
shot
flag, and he, I'm not sure if it was bits of wood hit him in the hand or if the bullet scraped his hand, but they shot at the flag.
That's crazy. So there's like so from what I sort of gathered, listening to Paddy's interview, I just because I took a lot of the research for this here from it there because it was very in depth. Obviously, Unions as a group had to go out and like get all the witnesses for this here. So how was the sort of process for that there started? Did you sit down with him, with Paddy, and say, listen, look, this is what we need. We need to build a case here, and we've no witnesses. I mean, so what way did that?
It started 20 odd years ago.
We had started this as families ourselves.
Yourselves, right, okay.
Years ago.
There was a thing in St Mary's, the Forgotten Victims of the Troubles, and after the initial people had stopped talking, they passed a microphone round the hall. Different people stood up saying, my loved one was murdered by the army, or the dates and times. So we realised that a lot of people were standing up saying about what happened on the 9th of August. So after that, the families got together. So they started meeting a few times a week.
So see the actual group. The group now obviously is before you started this sort of meeting in St Mary's. Would you a lot of you knew each other, or was there?
Knew each other, but didn't know.
Not at
It
the
wasn't
very-
connected, like
not
as
at
in
the
like
very-
the murders, then.
No.
Some of them ended up to be cousins, but not at the very start. No, we didn't know one another as.
Because my
but
sister,
Bridge and
Bridge,
Rita went to school together.
they were
Right.
in the same class, and didn't know
Didn't know.
that they were connected by the massacre.
That's madness. What is
So
it?
what had happened then was the family members then started walking round Ballymurphy,
Door to door.
Divismore, Spring Hill, Rappendors. We used to living here in 1971 in the August, and if they were saying, look, we're Joan Conley's daughters, or Mr. Murphy's daughter, or Mr. Core's daughter. We're just looking to see if anybody has anything that can
Witnessed
tell us
anything.
about what happened.
Yep.
And sort of built up from there, and it literally was the families did the investigation themselves. We were the ones that sourced the witnesses.
So what did you basically go into their houses and take written statements
Yeah.
from everybody and build it all up, right?
Yeah.
So how many witnesses did you just end up with then? Like,
Could be. Well, considering that the police said there was no witnesses to any of them, you know,
Yeah.
they just said that there was no. Because
So they didn't
as
even
much
try,
as they got
I
an
mean,
inquest, they
yeah,
didn't.
yeah,
They didn't.
yeah.
These people have told us when we went to the doors that they were never asked before.
yeah.
Nobody ever came or approached them and asked them had to witness anything.
At the original inquest in 1972, all of them are more or less the same. Died from gunshot wounds found in field. That was my mummy's.
That was it. Just
What's that?
There was no compensation. Well, we got compensation. My daddy was given £225 to bury my mummy.
Mrs. Taggart was actually told that she was getting
Widows.
like
She
a
got
widow's-
family allowance for each of her kids.
and they actually
And
said
because Mr. Taggart was murdered, she would then be entitled to widow's pension.
some
And
couple of pound extra or pound extra or something. And
They said to her that, oh, you have one less mouth to
you
feed,
should be better off. You have one
and
less
you'll be
mouth to
better
feed.
off because you'll be entitled to widow's pension.
so. I see at the time. I read this somewhere. I can't remember the exact number. How many children was there then that after they
57.
lost a parent?
57
57.
57.
kids left with one parent.
That's atrocious. Like.
No,
So does
it
it-
wasn't even, and because my daddy was classed, and the coroner actually made a thing about that because Jackson was round the corner giving an
Press
interview
statement.
to
Yeah.
the media, while my daddy and John Lavery was lying round the corner, and he was round there giving a press conference saying that they had just killed 2 IRA gunmen. My daddy worked in shorts, so that was put in the paper. You know, that
Yeah.
2 IRA gunmen. My mummy didn't get no compensation out of shorts. My mummy didn't get his pension out of shorts because of the death certificate. There wasn't a proper death certificate because it was an open verdict.
Right.
And she never got any compensation whatsoever. Nobody ever came to my mummy's door to help her out. And like counsellors or anything, there was nothing.
Welfare.
Absolutely nothing.
I mean, my daddy was left with $6.
See actually a lot of the widows in this, was any of those ones like pregnant, or when this sort of happened?
Frank Quinn's wife was pregnant with their second child.
Terrible, like. So obviously the sort of kids and I then have took on the sort of the mantle.
People would say to us why is it 50
so
years, and we go, well, sure, we had to grow up.
Yeah.
You know, we had to grow up.
Yeah.
We were all only kids when this happened, and the government obviously, they thought they were getting away with it until we grew up and realised how horrific everything was. After St Mary's, that time when we all found out about what was happening, how close, you know, everything was, and we put it all together ourselves and went to get rid of it.
And it literally was over a period of 36 hours. 11 people died.
When did you try to get an inquest before Paddy was involved in this here?
We were.
Did you have like another solicitor before, or
we at the start before that there we were actually looking at an independent investigation into the deaths of our
I had approached a solicitor a few years before to ask, because my brother, the eldest, I had been asking him what had happened at the court. Why was it an open verdict? She wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was out looking for her kids, so I mean she was doing what a mother would naturally do. So why was it left at an open verdict? So I then was a community worker, so I had spoke to a solicitor, and he told me to come up and meet him in his office, which I did do, and I explained what happened. And he says unfortunately he couldn't do anything because the laws had changed so many times over the years, and basically they were too young to remember any of it, and there was nothing can be done. So I just left it, and then the thing in St Mary's happened, and then Paddy was sent to us.
It was just like, you say he was sent to us? Like, I mean, what? So, how did he originally get involved with this then?
When I say Paddy was sent
I know you picked it up wrong.
I don't mean that somebody sent.
No, I know what you mean. I know as if like he was a gift from God.
He was
yes.
a gift from God.
I know what
it was
you're
a gift
saying.
from our loved
yes,
ones.
but I mean, but obviously I don't think like somebody says go and help him, sir. But when did he get involved in the case then with the families?
Well, who were
to
we?
be honest, I don't honestly know, because it's like he's always been there. He's been there from the beginning, sort of.
No,
I know he hasn't been, but it feels like
it seems like he's been there from the very start, like with his eye. So the actual sort of hearing and the like, when were you actually informed then that you were going to get a proper inquiry then, like?
The proper inquest.
Yeah, so the inquest,
10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, 10 years ago. The Jerry Adams had spoke to the Attorney General, and then come back. He had mentioned a few different things that
it was happening
at the time. And he happened to say that we were sort of, at this stage, our campaign, it hadn't taken off long, but it was gathering momentum. And he mentioned us, and the Attorney General asked a wee bit about it, and Jerry then came and spoke to Breach and John and Eileen and the rest of them and said, look, what do we do here? What can we give him? So a pack was put together for him, copies of the 16 soldier statements, the inquest papers, and if memory serves right, I don't think he read all of them, because when he read the first few he realised that this needs sorted.
You sort of read enough and said the proper.
And he said then that we were entitled and we would get our inquest. It took 8 years to get the MOD.
So when actually did it start then? Because you said it was put back a few times and stuff, was it, before? I mean,
Yeah,
before
That
the,
was the
back for
preliminary
years.
hearings. The preliminary hearings was
Years.
put back for about 5-6 years.
Yeah.
and what was the reasons for that there?
Because the MOD wouldn't come forward with anything.
Right.
They couldn't find any information. They couldn't find soldiers. They couldn't find cipher numbers. They couldn't find anything.
No, do you know, when I was on the Nolan show the other week, Lord Dannett says that the army wouldn't do anything like that. They would have meticulous records, absolute meticulous records of every soldier, every bullet. He just gave out that they had everything, and they would know where every soldier was at any given time, and they kept all these meticulous records. And what he was getting at was the fact that somebody had said about the IRA and the LVF, the UVF or whatever, and how can you trace them? And they didn't keep any records. But so what if the army kept records and everything else? So where are they?
Mick Jackson, wasn't it said in court that the British Army don't do cover-ups?
Oh, they don't do cover-ups.
That's Jackson guy. I mean, the more you think, he was obviously was the one in charge of Bloody Sunday as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The same
Yeah,
guy. He
same
done
one.
the interviews and stuff and also did. So see, actually, then the actual court here and giving of evidence in the preliminary sort of hearing stuff. Were you called as witnesses yourselves?
No.
No.
We gave, one member of each family gave
A pen letter.
a
It was,
pen pic describing, it was to humanise our loved ones, because basically they were only a statistic in the books. So at the very first day, one family member gave the history of the person, just like you asked about my mummy. She was born in Collingwood Street. Just to humanise them, where they were born, where they played, where
many kids they had.
things like that. And that was the only time that we were in the witness box.
So, but we usually allowed to attend every single
Every day.
but just as in the stands watching the kind of thing. In
There was two areas. There was the public gallery and there was the jury box.
Right.
At the beginning, the likes of General Howlett, all the families could, not all members, but representatives from each family could sit in the jury box. But as we got closer to the individual soldiers, they had applied for cover, so they'd have been brought into the witness box with the curtains completely closed. And then once they were settled and the judge came in, one side was opened, so the ones in the jury box got to see who was in the witness box, but the public gallery couldn't see them.
Right, so obviously, when it came to giving evidence, there was actually paras were brought in then.
Yeah.
I mean, were they like summons that had to go, or did it go by choice, or what?
There was a few of them summoned, but subpoenaed, but
Didn't
some
turn
of
up
them
still.
didn't turn up.
Right, okay.
Even been subpoenaed twice, didn't turn up.
So see, obviously when they were in the witness box, what was the sort of attitude and demeanour of them whenever all this stuff was obviously being put to them, or they were being asked? Like, I mean, was it being cocky, or like just as if they didn't care, or I mean, was there any remorse from them?
No remorse. From, I think there was remorse from maybe
One. There was.
But the majority of all of them came in, shoulders back, chest out, head held high,
All they said, all they kept saying was, I don't know, can't remember.
and proud. They
Jackson,
kept saying about the gun battles. All these gun battles were going on, but they didn't fire any bullets.
No.
Did the soldier beside you fire any bullets? No. Well, we have it here that M57 or M56 was such and such, and he fired this amount of bullets, and you... No, there was no bullets fired at all. We didn't, there was
But
nothing.
there was a gun battle.
And they just let them...
And they used all that ammunition. Nobody knows.
But they didn't fire anything? Like.
Yeah.
So when did the actual inquest finish, and then obviously they will take time out to deliberate the findings then?
It
March.
it was just before COVID.
Yeah. It finished February 2019. And then we were... Oh no, it didn't finish before Christmas, and then we were supposed to have the findings in March.
Right, okay.
But then COVID broke.
Yep.
So everything was all sort of put back and put back and put back. We were asked if we wanted to do a Zoom meeting, and we said no. We wanted our day in court.
Yeah.
We actually said no before we were asked did we want a Zoom meeting. You know, we just sort of preempted. We hear what emails, we're not getting anything snuck in here. We're going to put this out there first. We don't want this.
Yes.
Just in case.
See, during the whole sort of process, obviously it's been a very long time, this sort of whole fights have had. I'm sure there's been a lot of people sort of since passed away, like mothers, fathers, probably husbands, wives, a lot of children as well have been born. What has this sort of been emotionally sort of using this for families, for the people that sort of have died that didn't get the justice sort of before?
Heartbreaking.
I mean, before they passed on, like.
It's heartbreaking, but it's more heartbreaking for me for our Joe, because when I'd started doing this, I did start alone, and then I knew I didn't know enough, you know, I felt as though I didn't know enough to contribute to the other members, family members in the meetings and stuff. So I went up and seen Joe and says, right, if I'm going, you're going, and I brought him with me. But when I seen the stress that it was putting him under and what it was doing to him, I said, just leave it. And then I actually stopped for a while, you know. And then I went, do you know what? No, I'm doing this. I'm getting this for my daddy. I'm going to get this for my daddy and our Joe. The people need to know the truth. You know, my wee brother died 10 days after his 34th birthday. Now, people would say, but sure, he was only a baby. He was a baby that grew up with a chip on his shoulder because he had no daddy and wanted to know where his daddy was and why his daddy was taken away from him. So it affected all our family in different ways. You know, I had a brother murdered in Edinburgh, but that brother that was murdered in Edinburgh had turned to the drink. You know, so that was his way of coping with things. My other brother was the same, Kieran, and that was because of what we didn't get when we were younger, like counselling or help or anything like that. That was their coping mechanism.
The way of coping with it, yeah.
You know, and seeing the stress that my mummy was under being left with 7 kids, a one-parent family, you know, and like nothing, no help whatsoever came.
With yourself, alright.
It's exactly the same. My daddy was born and reared on a farm in Monaghan. Big, strong, strapping man, 6'4". And when my mummy was murdered, he just became so weak and so nervous. And then when Bloody Sunday happened, my daddy collapsed. He took a nervous breakdown, ended up in Grames's for 6 weeks. And when he came home, he was never the same. I had an old man for a daddy, where my daddy died when he was 62.
Yeah.
And my daddy didn't go out, didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything with any of us. And over the years, I've had a brother who turned to drink, our Pat. We found him dead in the house. He had took a massive heart attack due to the drink. A sister died. She actually married a soldier before all the troubles broke out. My sister, she's had breast cancer twice while fighting this campaign. Each of the family members have all lost so much over the years, including a very good friend to the families, but Kathleen McCarry, and that was Anne.
We was going to say we have lost actually people through the COVID through the inquest as well. One of our witnesses that was actually very ill. You know, when he went to give his statement, he died before he got justice. We had Anne McMurray, Kathy McCarry's cousin, who went to the court every single day,
every meeting, no matter where we went with the campaign. Anne was there,
and she died with COVID. You know, so there was somebody else as well.
One of the Doyle brothers.
Yes,
he died.
And they died. They went and gave their statements and done everything else, and they died without even seeing the justice.
When were you sort of given this new date of May this year? When the tale is this is when it's going to be released?
We were actually we were actually given, we'd found out that she was going to give us a date, put it out there in March.
Right.
And we said, well, look, we have families live in England, families live in Scotland. Restrictions was very tight then.
You can't get over and stuff.
You know,
yeah, no,
The first date was
So
in April.
we asked
her to put it
to
back.
put it back to say May or June, you know, because of the restrictions, so we could get as many family members there as possible, and plus get the ones, you know, from across the water. So then she came back with the 11th of May, and that was it. Wasn't wasn't changing.
So probably
And that was about 2 weeks beforehand.
Yeah.
stupid question, but so you up until the fightings of the day, you generally had like no idea how this was going to go.
No.
Like, is you just like on eggshells? I mean, probably thinking of in the hearings, did you think like anytime this is going to go our way here? So does like mean, or do you felt it could go anyway? Like,
Yeah, well, she was hard to tell sometimes.
When we were listening, if we were telling the story to you, because we believed that our loved ones were innocent, we expected you to believe
it.
yeah,
because there was nothing there to prove anything other than that. The day she was reading out the findings, you were up, you were down, you were up, you were down, because she was going, I believe the soldiers in this incident because it fits in with the witness's statement and this incident, and then I don't believe this soldier, but I believe this witness, and I don't believe this eyewitness, but I believe. So you were up and down, and you were going, oh, it's going our way. No, it's not going our way. Yes, it's going our way. But throughout the inquest, we were told that the toughest thing that could happen was that she could say, Justice Keegan would say that our loved ones weren't a threat to anybody, and undue force was used, or unlawful force was used. So when she did Frank and Father Mullins first, and she said that these people were completely and entirely innocent, personally I thought my heart was going to explode. And I just turned around and looked around me, and when I turned around, we're all sitting in our family bubbles.
Yep.
When I turned around, I seen Aileen and her sister Geraldine, and I was like, and even now I've goosebumps.
so you sort of knew from the first ones that's where it was going to go then
Well,
the
we
whole
were
way
hoping
through.
because she took everyone
individually.
separate. So, you know, some of them, as I said, I was always worried about my daddy's case. So I actually thought when I got to us, I was going, please. And I mean, you were like, she left it to the very last. She read out, as Erin says, she gave you the narrative of what this could have been and what that, and you're
The
going,
probability.
How long did it actually take to give the whole findings?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. And you're sort of sitting at each family and through each other one. You're
Say that on the 11th of May 2021 at 12:31 my mummy was declared innocent, because the minute the judge said innocent I looked at my watch and I thought, this is a moment that's going to just timeless.
What made it really hard, and because we were in the waterfront, we weren't in the court.
yeah.
But we as families always done things together, and we were always standing beside one another in support. If you were doing an interview, somebody stuttered, somebody would have got up and stood beside you and give you that comfort. It was very hard in the waterfront because we couldn't do that.
You were separated.
Yeah, I understand.
We couldn't do that, and that was heartbreaking.
Because what you wanted to do was go and hug them and say yes.
Well, we, under normal circumstances, we'd all been starting, I guess.
Yeah.
You know.
So see, actually, so when all the judgment was read out, he's obviously then had to get outside, and I mean, what was going through your mind? Like, I mean, it's probably still on it's like a sort of like a rush sort of thing. Maybe like still just adrenaline.
It was like something just lifting off your shoulders and just going up, and you just went. You're actually standing going, what happened? You know.
Yeah.
Because directly after it, we all sort of were scattered. Kieran Cahill scattered us all around the media to give first reactions to the media. And the first thing they were asking was, how do you feel? And I was like, ask me something easy. I mean, after all these, I mean, it's been an absolute lifetime for the likes of me.
Yeah.
Who was so young at the time. So, I mean, you're asking somebody that's been fighting a lifetime of questions, who had them answered, to go, what's your first reaction? And you're like, And nothing was coming, because you literally couldn't put into words how you felt. You wanted to cry, you wanted to laugh, you wanted to scream. Oh, it was just every emotion just going at once.
See, when you were getting interviewed by the media, I mean, we're just ordinary families. You know, we're not used to sitting with mics and cameras. And, you know, so see, to be able to stand and speak to somebody that was interviewing you, knowing that in your heart of hearts that you'd done that umpteen times and nobody believed you, but for to be able to stand there and say, my daddy was murdered without anybody saying...
It's been declared that, that's the truth.
That was the best feeling.
Arlene Foster, there was a gap in the middle of the preliminary hearings. One of the coroners was retiring and one was out sick. And there was 2 parties had put a motion through Stormont to have one of the Chief Justice brought in and given the powers of the coroner. And the thing was read out. There was only a handful of MLAs there. And then all of a sudden had to take a vote and they come in from everywhere. The DUP, Arlene Foster came in. We cannot rewrite history. I refuse to rewrite history. I was like, we're not trying to rewrite history. We're trying to correct history.
Yeah, just get the truth.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened on the 11th of May.
Just a quick question coming there. Martin Heaney on YouTube says, can you ask them about the help and support they received from Father Paddy McCaffrey?
Fat.
Is he the guy in Spring Hill?
Yeah.
He's the parish priest for Spring Hill.
And he's been an absolute rock as well.
The first day of, the first couple of days that we were in court, it was the second or the third day, Father Paddy actually came down into the family room. We had a wee room up the corridor from the court for tea and coffee and listening ears that were there. And Father Paddy had all the family all standing in the room so that he could give us all a blessing.
And we had met the Taoiseach and Sam Coveney.
Yeah.
So it was Leo Farraga then, was it?
No,
Enda
it was Enda Kelly.
Okay, right.
And we had met him in Spring Hill. And was that just the time Sam Coveney was there? Because we were in Spring Hill. And Father Pat McCaffrey was sitting there. And we were actually all telling our stories to Sam Coveney round the table. And Pat McCaffrey just broke down.
He done the same, giving us the blessing.
Broke down.
Seriously?
He broke his heart.
He was devastated.
So was he there on the days with you down in the waterfront? Was he?
No, he was in Spring Hill.
Oh, okay.
We had links in Spring Hill, links in
St. Peter's. Yeah. Just there's people commenting here on so Joanna Smith said, and just also to give a shout out the unbelievable years of commitment from the families from Kieran Cahill.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So
Kieran was a laugh to us. I mean, to me, Kieran's just one of the families now.
Kieran Cahill.
So is he just like a resident or so from Ballymurphy, or what's he?
He's a community worker in Spring Hill House.
Right. Okay. Right.
And from
Father Des too as well. Father Des Wilson gave us a lot of support.
Kieran Kieran's just the brother. I've been keeping Kieran going, saying that you're the adopted brother, and he says no, I'm not adopted anymore.
No, he's not.
I'm just blended in with every one of yous.
Yeah.
And God love, poor Kieran gets tortured too. He's worse than Paddy. He just left the phone. Kieran, will you do such and such for me? Kieran, will you do such and such?
Kieran set up a meeting with the families and the court people. Got us in round the courts.
He sorted all that
because a lot of us had never been in a court before, and he didn't want to scare us. Kieran also sorted out the listening ears. That we had counsellors every single day in the court.
Our tea room. Our sandwiches.
He got us our tea room. He provided sandwiches every single day for lunch. He set up weekends away before the inquest again with Paddy and John. Can't remember John's surname. He was a pathologist.
Oh yeah,
John Burton. So Paddy, so that we would be able to question them about what was coming in the court. Kieran set up all of that.
I'm just looking through the comments here because people are starting to obviously, you know, Neil Course come on, he says,
He's never quiet.
I know, he does my hair. He says, can you ask Erin who does her hair because it's lovely? And then Kirsty come on here and says it's me that does it, so it is.
That's my daughter.
Yeah. Right, so obviously once the report was published, all eyes were then turned towards Boris Johnson, so were, to see if he would sort of give you your sort of so-called David Cameron moment in the House of Parliament, and the Bloody Sunday family's got. Obviously that wasn't forthcoming, and the sort of coward that he is let the Secretary of State, Brandon Lewis, and to sort of do his dirty work. And I think even then that their speech he made fell well short of what was deserved fusions. And it was sort of, even at them was still full of ifs, buts and maybes. It wasn't the speech you sort of got. So how did that sort of make you feel after hearing it the next day? Like,
Well, see, for one, we didn't ask Boris Johnson for an apology.
Yep.
Not one family member asked Boris Johnson for an apology. It was politicians that asked him, and politicians were putting him under pressure
to do it.
to say them words that he said, because that's all they are, words. Boris Johnson needs to know that we don't want an apology from him. We want a proper investigation into the murders that have now been proven into our loved ones, and we want the people that murdered our loved ones held accountable, and one of them being the British government.
Right, so obviously he decided to sort of give the families a pre-written letter, right? Obviously, so two things. Was this a personalised letter to all the families, or was it just one letter passed around to all the family? Oh, wait, was that?
It was one letter emailed to Paddy Murray.
Emailed?
Yeah, and Paddy didn't even know that he was getting it until Brandon Lewis mentioned it on the news, and Paddy went and checked his emails, and lo and behold, there was.
So it was just like an email, and it was basically just a generic letter for all of you to.
So it was Paddy that printed the letter.
It was actually something that he got. Obviously, says to one of his staff, here, just read us up a wee thing or for them BALLYMURPHY ones, or, and I just saying that it wasn't even a proper signature, because you knew it was like, well, obviously it was photocopied.
It turned out that he was on the phone to Michelle O'Neill and Arlene, and it was mentioned. I think it was Michelle mentioned to him, Harry, I take it you have seen the news about the BALLYMURPHY families. And he started bumbling on about an apology, and Michelle says to him, well, it's not us you owe the apology to, it's the families. You need to meet with the families and apologise to the families. So then the next day the letter was sent. So it was a kind of a kick in the teeth.
What did it actually say on the letter?
That they were sorry for how the investigation.
I'd love to know what investigation it is he's talking about.
Yeah, so he's talking about the inquest.
He didn't mention soldiers, he didn't mention...
He was sorry for the investigation, the original investigation, because there hasn't been an investigation.
The one in 1972?
Yeah. He was sorry for how our loved ones had died. He was sorry for the trauma that we went through.
But no mention of British Army in it, no mention of what they did, no mention of how the coroner was able to deem our ones completely innocent. There was no mention of that at all.
And
just
when David Cameron apologised to the Bloody Sunday families, he apologised on behalf of the entire country.
Yeah, what I was going to say in the next question, obviously, after a bit of pressure, sort of, Boris Johnson sort of did in his way give you your sort of David Cameron moment. What's obviously the Bloody Sunday families got in the House of
But
Parliament.
the Bloody Sunday families knew that David Cameron was going to do that.
Yes, no, but I'm just saying the speech that he had gave, obviously, and this as well was like in true Boris Johnson style, just bumbled through, and again, just like Brandon Lewis, it was all ifs, buts, and maybes, and it wasn't what he should have just done and sort of grew a set like. But so I mean, obviously. You didn't accept that sort of excuse.
We didn't even know what was happening.
Right? So you weren't
even
told.
The second one that he read out the names, we didn't even know what was happening. It was actually RTE Radio 1 that phoned me and says, do you want to give a wee statement about Boris Johnson? I said, what about him?
What's he said, or what's...
And it was the same with Brandon Lewis.
You didn't know he's married, right?
That got in contact with family members and asked, what's your reaction to Brandon Lewis's statement? And we're like, what was the statement? And then it was the same with Boris Johnson. But when you read the letter, because there's nothing in it that actually means anything, it proves that Boris is going to try and bring in
amnesty.
The blanket amnesty.
So, obviously, now that the dust is settled and this judgment has been made, have you sort of had time for it all settled in yet? That
No.
it's still in shock that the decision, that the judgment was made, like?
Yeah.
Right? So, see.
It's just great. It's brilliant to actually be able to honestly, well, what we always knew anyway, that our loved ones was innocent, but be able to turn around and just say it.
Yeah.
You know, for people to believe you. I mean, we faced all politicians. We went to every politician that would come to us, or we went to them. Like, we met Jeffrey Donaldson, and Jeffrey Donaldson was the one that actually says to us about getting a report done. You know,
first question Jeffrey Donaldson actually asked at the meeting was there any of you connected to the paramilitaries?
Or is there any skeletons ready to come out of the cupboard? And we went, no. But you see, these people would meet us. I mean, Peter Robinson met us as well. Not as First Minister, but as head of the DUP.
Yeah, well, just as like leader, right? Yeah.
But wouldn't go public. But because we wanted to meet all we went anyway, knowing that we wouldn't be able to get anything from it. But just to say that we did that.
So, see, on the day that Justice Keegan released her findings, what sort of was she like emotional in any way?
No.
I mean, can she be? I mean, and
no, she would have to.
She had a job to do. I mean, it's just has been neutral and sort of like.
After each of the loved ones were declared innocent, we gave a round of applause. Then she did her final summing up, and she says she thanked us, and she stood up, and when she stood up, everybody stood up and gave her a round of applause, because that was basically the only thing that we could do to thank her.
But even during the initial preliminary hearings and all, she spoke to us, you know. She didn't speak down to us. She spoke to us, because even if the MOD or anybody, she actually spoke over their heads, and she let the families know that she was actually speaking to them.
And she'd always checking, are you okay? Do you need a break? Do you need a break? Do you need 5 minutes?
Brilliant. So, what sort of happens now then? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk in the media about an amnesty that sort of covers everyone. And as you say yourselves, I think it's only Boris Johnson, the Brits that want this amnesty. Mm-hmm. So they obviously don't. The Brits won't have to go and face their day in court, so they want to cover this up. So what sort of avenues do you have now that you can follow it? I mean, is it just try and speak to politicians? I mean, and just sort of like lobby it or whatever.
Well, we're going to have to lobby it, and I don't think so anyway, because now that Judge Keegan has said that our loved ones are innocent, then the government needs to give us the proper investigation. I mean, they can't give them amnesty. Most of them, they know who did it.
Yeah.
They know who shot them people, and they know them themselves know who it was. Plus, them as it was above them, know.
Their officers.
They know who shot these people.
Command.
Jackson needs to actually open his mouth and give them. He got medals for standing around the corner with my daddy.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve them medals. I want them. I want them buried in with my daddy.
Do you think, is that an avenue that you can sort of go?
Yeah.
Then to try and get their honours took off them?
Yeah.
I mean, if not them facing like any jail time, obviously they never will. I mean, or any charges against them. But what? How does that process go? Is that like a military thing then? I mean, who takes their honours off them? Like,
really,
they would never be stripped off.
No, but there was never any police investigation.
Their titles. A lot of the soldiers, I mean, over the years, we've went to different campaigns, different people, and it's always been the same. When we say who we are and who our loved ones are, it was always, but what about the IRA, what the IRA did. And it kind of hurt, because you always felt that you were being targeted as a member of the IRA.
Yeah.
Over the years, over the last 50 years, there was 4 soldiers jailed for no more than 2 years. But there's been thousands of men jailed, be it paramilitary, be it loyalist, be it Republican or whatever. So to give a blanket amnesty, we had over 100 soldiers come through our inquest who all denied firing any bullets, doing any wrong, but yet they were the ones who went to the solicitors and asked for cover. They're the ones who are going and asking Boris Johnson for amnesty.
So they didn't
So-
do nothing wrong. Why are they going national for this?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why.
They should be able to go to court and say,
honesty-
"Yep, I didn't do this." You know, yeah.
And Boris Johnson starting up going that we won't hinder any people coming in. When we started our inquest, there was 95 families, including us, waiting to go through the process that we have just went through. So is Boris Johnson now stating that he's not going to hinder these families the way we were hindered? Justice Keegan asked the MOD for all relevant information, and they sent over something like 28 boxes of paperwork, but none of it was in sequence. It was all fuddly-duddly, and she sent them away and told them to fix it and bring it back.
Send it back, yeah.
And it was silly things like that
Yeah.
that was putting our inquest back. So is Boris going to stop the MOD for doing this? Is Boris going to tell the MOD, stop telling the soldiers when they're sent a letter from a judge requesting their presence to throw it in the bin? To ignore a judge who is the law of the land. Ignore it, throw it in the bin, deny you were there.
See, a lot of these soldiers, what sort of age are they now? I mean, are they still of an age where they can still come in and give sort of evidence and stuff and be
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
fit state of mind? Like,
The eldest
none of
was-
them are sort of going like, oh, like their minds away and stuff and
Some
memory
of
loss.
them-
and all
Yeah,
that
some
stuff.
of them did. But
Right.
they got medical excuses then.
Right.
You know.
It was very hurtful to have them say that these soldiers couldn't come in because they had a drink problem, they had a nervous problem, they had post-traumatic stress disorder. You're sitting in the jury box. I suffer from mental health problems and have done for most of my adult life, if not all my adult life. I have been for counselling. I have been for counselling 7 times to try and deal with what happened to my mum. We have had family members who were alcoholics. We have had family members who were addicted to different things. And these people, they are the reason we are sitting the way we are. But they're being given an excuse. Yes, you're too old, you're 83, you're 76, you're 53. And I'm sitting here today in the state that I'm in because of what they did. Yet it was okay for them to say, no, you're fine, you have this disability or that disability. What about the Nazis? 99-year-olds being brought in for war crimes? What's stopping the British
Difference.
Army from doing it?
See, Jackson himself, like, did he sort of give the meter that he was very proud
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
what
Well,
his,
not only
his,
they
his
gave-
men had done?
He was so cocky. He just sat there.
He stated that they were proud of what they wore and who they wore,
He didn't want screen. He wasn't afraid of being
and
seen.
they were proud of what they've done.
But he sat in that court like that. He could not lift his eyes to look at any member of any family.
He looked at the judge or the
The MOD.
barristers.
Sat with his head down the whole time,
the
man.
whole
A
time.
lot of them sort of had their arms sitting, no, proud as punch. But throughout the inquest, the MOD tore our witnesses to pieces. Mrs. Breen, Anna Breen, was my mummy's best friend, and she gave a statement, and it's been the same statement for years. She's never lost a word out of it. And the MOD were so ignorant with her, and I was so angry because of the way they were treating her. But when it was our ones questioning the soldiers, they were very gentle. And I was like, Paddy, what's going on here? And he says, hold on, there's a method in the madness. And this was one of the incidents where Michael Mansfield called all the families in and said, watch how we treat them. When they come in, they're so hard and so tough, and I'm a soldier, I'm a para, and I'm proud. But because they were so gentle with them, they relaxed. And the more they relaxed, the more their mouth relaxed. So the more they put themselves in it.
Right, okay.
So
right.
they were admitting to things
Right.
in
I
just
was actually a
in the
few of them
flow
that name slip as well.
yeah, in the flow of conversation. And they found the judge would have broke it by saying, can you just ignore that name?
Right, that's his name. So, see, if there was a sort of inquiry granted, can any of the evidence and stuff that's been used in this inquest be brought, so it can be actually because
It's now in the public
domain,
so
and
it
it's-
can now be brought.
Right, okay. Well, listen, before we finish up here, I just want to thank Ari and Eileen, thank you so much for coming up tonight.
Thanks for having us.
And sharing your story, because obviously a lot of people that follow us here, they only get to hear wee bits in the news or in the media and stuff, but they sort of obviously is sitting out and pour your hearts out and told us everything, and obviously I've learned a lot that I didn't know, you know, and it's just even like 100 times more respect for the families now, like what you've been through for hearing this here.
But you've heard Neil and Michael and it's like the ripple effect. It didn't just affect us as kids, it's affecting the grandkids. It's now actually starting to affect the great grandkids.
Yeah.
So this needs put to bed. We need the justice now that we deserve for our grandkids and great grandkids to be able to grow up without this worry.
Because, as I said, I'm 53. My niece is 7 years younger than me, and I would say I would be more on a level with her.
Yep.
Than I would be on a level with my sisters. She didn't know my mummy, obviously. Her mummy was only 14 when it happened, but I would feel more of a connection with my niece than I do with my sisters, because they have their memories and they have all that. So I feel I'm more with the younger ones, and they may not have lived through it, but they've grown up with it.
Yep.
And as Aileen said, it's now affecting my grandchildren. My children are affected by my mental health growing up. They are affected, obviously, by that. They have their own mental health problems. But now it's on to the grandkids, and the grandkids are, I know what happened to Granny Joan, and my Granny Joan's innocent now. And that's the whole, even going into school. The ripple effect
now, yeah.
They were telling their teachers in school, my Granny Joan is innocent.
So listen, before we finish up, we're going to play here. We're going to play John's speech again. Just obviously we'll read out the reading out the names. So see when it's not, can you just hold up your plaques? Because you just brought obviously your pictures.
But I actually brought that and forgot to say about it, and I usually do.
Yeah, no problem. Just hold it up there so we can see. And that's the camera up here. So it is.
Here's your picture.
This is what my mummy got for shorts.
So I heard that in the media. So did she get that, like a letter through a letterbox or whatever it was?
This is because of what Jackson said.
May your subhuman husband and pals roast in hell.
Mm-hmm. Now that obviously we have the original.
Yeah, the real letter still.
Yeah, with the envelope, the post stamp on it.
Right, so listen, we're gonna good friend of the show and mine as well, Gerald McConnell wrote a song about the Ballymurphy massacre. Obviously, I've heard him sing it many times at the March for Truth with him every year on the stage. So we're going to play it there to finish off with, and I say we'll play John's speech again from the day that the verdict was read. So listen, Eileen, thank you very much again.
Thank you
so much.
We, the Ballymurphy families, welcome the coroner's historic verdict today. Justice Keegan declared all unjustified force was used in the killing of our loved ones and entirely innocent. After 50 years, they have finally had their names cleared and their innocence put beyond doubt. I want to take a moment to remember them and remind us of what today's verdict means. Joan Connolly, innocent. Joseph Carr, innocent. Eddie Doherty, innocent. John Lavery, innocent. John McCurr, innocent. Father Hugh Mullen, innocent. Joseph Murphy, innocent. Noel Phillips, innocent. Frank Quinn, innocent. My father, Donny Taggart, innocent.
On an August night, 1971, you came to take our men and boys, but worse was yet to come. came at us with your guns and your orders, guaranteed free reign. You took 11 innocent lives from us, then you butchered their good names. Oh, we just want the truth that you're trying to hide, and you know that we won't go away. For all of Ballymurphy's innocent victims, the wounded, the murdered and slain. It's been such a long time and you hope we forgot, but the truth will come out in the end. For a proud and unbroken people, the spirit can't break or bend. Father Mullen was blessing the wounded while he waved white babies' clothes. And you cut him down in cold blood while he wore his clerical robes. And the young Frank Quinn, just 19 years, went to see what he could do. And as he bravely went to Father Mullen's aid, he killed him in cold blood too. And as the crowd began to gather all around about the manse, you opened fire at the gathering. God, they didn't stand a chance. And when the pirate guns stopped firing, Dan Taggart lay there dead. A man with 13 children, shot 14 times with lead. Noel Phillips, he lay there wounded, he was crying out for aid. And Joan Conley tried to help him, and just for that you blew off half of her face. And you left her lying bleeding, she was wounded fatally. 8 children without a mother, they saw the funeral while watching TV. Oh, we just want the truth that you're trying to hide, and you know that we won't go away. For all of Ballymurphy's innocent victims, the wounded, the murdered and slain. Oh, it's been such a long time and you hope we forgot, but the truth will come out in the end. For a proud and unbroken people, the spirit you can't break or bend. Came out in your armored car to lift the wounded and the dead, and at point blank range executed young Noel with 2 into the head. And you lifted an injured Joe Murphy and beat him and left him nearly dead. And then you shot him with the rubber bullet into the hole that you just made with lead. And then you beat the bodies of the living and dead with your fists and your boots and your guns. Was it bloodlust or drugs or orders? Your orders to shock and stun, but your bloodlust just didn't end there. There were still 2 days to go, and you shot at Dougherty the very next day as he walked from his parents' home. And still 4 more men were yet to die by your bullets and your fear. John Laverty, Joe Core and John McCare, you shot them from far and from near. And for Paddy McCarthy, a heart attack, he was wounded, harassed and then beat. But your mock execution, well, that did the trick without aid, made to lie on the street. Oh, we just want the truth that you're trying to hide, and you know that we won't go away. For all of BALLYMURPHY's innocent victims, the wounded, the murdered and slain. It's been such a long time and you hope we'd forget, but the truth will come out in the end. For proud and unbroken people with a spirit you can't break.
So there's the sound of the BALLYMURPHY Massacre song written by Jerry Oak, as you all know from the Rock Bar and Sun 8, Jerry Oak McConnell. So folks, again, ladies, thank you very much. Really been a pleasure having you up here. It's been excellent, so it has. So folks, I just let you know again that the show wasn't on Sunday there because I was up in Tyrone with the big gathering with the Irish Brigade, and my apologies for the regular viewers who didn't get who were missing the show this week. But we'll be back this Sunday, folks, from 1 o'clock till 5 again, and this week the guest is Bobby Fields. So folks, that's us. I'll see you again Sunday, and thank you everyone. Well, I'll share the link for this tonight for anyone who missed it or might have only joined in halfway through it. So once about another 10 minutes, once it's uploaded, I will share the YouTube link, and you can share it far and wide, and we'll get as many people listening as possible. So folks, cheers. I'll see you on Sunday.
You have been listening to Rebel Podcast of Very Carton. To listen to this and past episodes again, and to also check out future episodes, keep an eye on our official SoundCloud page. We're also available on all social media outlets. Just search Rebel Podcast. Bhí sé bhgéisteach an sin leis an fád cruúlaí Rebel le Rory McCarson. Le héisteach le seo agus hir hagran a ríis, agus na hagran atá le teach, caisúil ar siú ethical sugin ar SoundCloud, agus táid ar fáil ar gach cineal ardan ar na main húisiúta. Ní mór ditch ag fád cruúlaí Rebel a curda.